Good morning, good morning.
Morning, Keith.
Thank you.
Good job.
Welcome to our combined RPAC TTAC meeting. The folks who are still getting refreshments, come on in and have a seat. Don't be afraid to come up front. Today, we introduce ourselves briefly. We'll be brief. Just please say who you are, who you represent, and then we'll get right into business. I'll take it just a moment of privilege real quick just to say I am grateful to have made it to this point in the year and with you all helping to lead our regional partnerships. It's an honor for me. It's really funny that I get paid to be friends with people across our region. But in the city of Omaha, by the way, I'm in Asian and I'm chair of the environment committee of Harvard 2050. And I'm happy to be here. I guess we should pass the microphone if we do that, and the topics will come up today at board briefing too. County Union. And thank you. And let's get to it. Well, for TTAC, who I am, I'm just the chair of the TTAC committee, so I'm just going to jump right in this morning. So I think we'll get my so with the TTAC members in the room, just start in front row or introduce yourself, say your name and who you represent today, please.
Christy Evans, the City of Omaha.
Alex Evans, City of Third.
I just think it's so cute that the Evans is
Jim Warner with Mappa. Fort Barton with Mappa.
Rachel Getchett now.
Am I part of this? You know what? Why don't we let's do that? Let's just go by roll. Let everybody introduce yourself.
You can say if you're a TTAC or.
Yeah.
So,
Or both.
Or I don't know.
we'll tell you.
Yeah. Andy Wicks, Potawatomi County, and I may or may not be part of. Oh, you're both. I am both. You're more special than you even knew. I started 6 weeks ago.
Very good.
Chris Meeks, OPPD, I'm on the RPAC.
Jared Walker, NDOT with TTAC.
Dave Dodican, City of Bellevue, TTAC.
And go on to the regular.
Pat House, this is Public Works, TTAC.
Seacrest, Spark. Bertie Glass, MED, RPAC.
Bruce Fountain, City of La Vista.
Who's the even?
Pat. Carrie.
Who's the even UNMC are?
RPAC. Robert Rocco, Sark County.
Derek Miller, City of Omaha, TTAC. Mark McLaughlin, City of Omaha, TTAC. Brian Guy, City of Omaha.
Darius Stern, NDOT, TTAC.
More City NDOT District 2.
Andrew Preston, Matt. Matt, Public Nonprofit Association.
Megan Ingber, City of Boston, RPAC.
Got to get in the city of Plain, RPAC, and Spears. David Plain, RPAC.
Who are Detroit, Douglas County, RPAC.
Fireman, City of Blair. Carlos Brown, TTAC, RPAC. Mike Wilson. Can I ask that they pay more than? Oh, with Mappa.
I shouldn't say nothing.
Asbury Turner, Engagement Chair,
Given City Council Bluffs.
Okay.
We've got some people online as well.
Okay.
We'll do Joan and Jeremy.
Joan Green, ENA.
Jeremy Williams with HCR.
Yeah, we'll do Dan and Zach.
Dan Kudelek, Douglas County.
Zach Fergus, Natural Resource Chair.
And then Dan and Isabel. Dan and Matt then.
Dan Carpenter, we've got 2 Dans online today.
And then Matt Cox as well,
Matt Cox, City of Council Bluffs.
right?
And we were
Oh,
just
and Dana.
joined by Yusuf Dana from High Street, who may still be getting his audio set up.
Everybody? Okay, I enjoyed the way some of you said that TTAC or you had. So, all right, we're gonna get into, of course, this is a little bit of being, if I do something wrong, just shut me. But we're gonna get into the action items here for TTAC. And the first action item is the approval of the minutes from the October 17 meeting. So is there any questions or discussion on those minutes? They were available on the back of the room. If there are no questions or discussion, is there a motion to approve those minutes? Motion. Right. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay. And then we've got 3 more. Meeting. Oh, we're back for like this. So I'm excited today because we have 4. We just need, with the vote to approve the meetings from the June 5th, 2025 meeting, August 1st, 2025 meeting, the October 25 meeting. Zero. Second. All in favor?
Yeah,
Oh, carries. The minutes are approved.
am I the only one excited about that?
So now we'll move back to the TTAC. We need to come up with a way to. It's like we work with these, we were into the city. So the next, action, TTAC is the draft 2050 housing transportation plan, the OTP.
Amendment 1. Thanks, Todd. So we have a few changes we need to make to the metropolitan transportation plan. Some of it is just kind of housekeeping. We're adding new ID numbers to all the projects, following the map of universal IDs. We'll also be adding those into the tip, but basically we want to make it easier to compare things that are, in planning and also in the transportation improvement program. So there'll be a single ID that carries between both documents, kind of all the planning work that we do. So it's really easy to identify something that's not tracking from a regional planning perspective. There is going to be additional traffic demand model documentation added to appendix in the plan. And then in addition to that, there are some project changes. So we're adding 3 projects. These 3 projects were, so one of them is a project for Gretna. They're receiving funds from Don Bacon's office, and we're adding that into the NGP so they can keep that project moving. We have 2 projects. They were added to project groupings in the MTD, basically by error. So we're pulling them out of those groups. Should have been Omaha's Century Safety Improvements and the Midtown Medical Center. But in actually both of them are in the tip, let's make sure that it's clear. The MTD. We're removing one project from the MTP. We had a rotating line in there, we're turning that into a not. It's not really affecting anything in the financial plan, it's just kind of how we're categorizing these things in the back end. We're creating a new region. 3 projects have been updated. There were actually some errors in there. The amount of funding that was applied to buildings transfer and 370 undercrossing. It basically had a previous award amount in there, increasing the amount that is in the MPP from 2.3 million to 10 million. Gretna's Trail, same issue. They actually have more funding on that project than we have listed, going from 1 million to 2 million. And the issue with Douglas County bridge replacement, Q Street, on River, increasing the amount that's in there from 3.6 to 4.6. We are updating 3 of the grouped project categories: congestion reduction, planning, and system preservation, basically increasing the amount of funding that's in both of those. Congestion reduction going from about 22 million to 36.2 million. Planning from 3.1 to 4.5, and then system preservation from about 200, almost 222 million to 254 million, mostly on account of new team-sponsored projects completed system preservation in the region. I'm adding 3 project groups that we originally didn't really have projects in previously. Nebraska gravel road paving, as I mentioned before, moving that from an individual line item. Iowa congestion reduction and Iowa safety projects. So the project group is just a way for us to kind of consolidate things that are of a similar nature, so we're not listing all of them independently. And then we're also updating anticipated federal revenue, basically adding $5 million to the congressionally directed spending discretionary line. This is to account for that grant award, that project award in Tram. They got about a $5 million award on that, so we're increasing the amount available federal balance in that category to account for that, so we have room to fit some of those projects. That's basically it on the MTP. So what we're primarily asking for here is this draft amendment. We're asking for a motion to recommend that the map open a public comment period next week. And then that public comment period will run through mid-January and come back to TTAC final approval, recommendation for final amendment. And if you've been looking at the MTP and you see that something of yours is missing, the project that you had coming up that's going to be missing, let me know. I'll still be going through the list of projects over the next month. Public comment, just trying to stay on top of everything that's going on.
Question.
Yeah.
I noticed some significant increases. Is there dollars for that? Is there funding for that? Or will it just be pushed out and balanced as we do our 6-year plan?
Yeah, so when we initially had the MTP approved earlier this year, there's a decent amount of cushion in there. This eats up some of that cushion, but there's still some cushion left in there from both federal and a local standpoint. And then as we get a little bit closer to 2030, we'll start moving into kind of the midterm of the MTP, and there's even more cushion in there. So, it'll be a little bit of a management thing, but then as the region gets additional awards, discretionary awards, that sort of thing, or as new funding bills come out and those sorts of things change, we can amend funding amounts in there. But right now, the financial plan remains fiscally constrained.
Thank you. Okay,
Yeah,
I didn't know.
I mean, like I say,
So what we're asking for is a motion to approve this, to put it out. The next step for our review. Motion. No. Okay, yeah, motions. Second. All those in favor? Opposed, same sign. Okay, so you're good on that report. So the next item is the TIP amendment to.
Or you scroll down.
Oh, did it pop up?
Yeah, scroll down just a little bit, get to the table. I'll go through some of these as best I can. So not a super complicated amendment, got different document revisions that are in this. So the first couple are related. So we're adding and changing some projects that are in the local projects. This is not the fiscally constrained portion of the TIP, but the addition of these projects is important because it relates to the I-80 interchange project in Starkey County. So the feeder routes, Jim will get into this when we talk about federal functional classification. Feeder routes that interchange right now are local roads, by the local roads. In order to in order to classify them as, what, minor arterials, except
Will major collector.
major collector, as major collectors of minor arterials, we have to basically be able to show that there is intention to upgrade those facilities. So we're putting those into show that many of them are gravel roads currently, so they'll be improved to fully paved roadways, and then part of the 5 segment of 92nd Street. So we're packaging all of this in the whole project section of the tip, so that we can show that there's progress being made, and there's a regional planning effort underway to upgrade those facilities so that we can justify the federal commission application. So that's kind of the intention behind that. So there will be 4 projects that will be added to 192nd Street as well as K Park in that area. And then we're also adding in the project related to the 156th Street K Park Road area. We had that project in the local section, but we didn't have the full extent of the project. We're increasing the total amount. And as with the MPP amendment, we're all those mapping universal IDs to the tip. Eventually, it'll kind of all shake out. That's what we'll be referencing. We'll continue to reference IDs at least in the near future, probably until the 2027 tip. But we want to get to a point by referencing something that's in the map document. And we also added reviewing some of our civil rights plan language. We need to add our civil rights policy from the transportation improvement program. We're doing that as well. Part of this amendment. And then on to individual projects. City of Bellevue's 2025 major street resurfacing. The funds for that project didn't get obligated in 2025, so we're looking at it in the 2026 program. In Sargent County, Flatview Road, 132nd Street, Flatview Road and 132nd Street intersection safety improvements. That's being added to the TIP with 1.4 million in congressionally directed spending funding. So that's another basically an earmark project that's being added into the TIP. It was in 2025. Carry over in time. We have two projects that for the city of Omaha received CNAC funding, signal operations projects, north and south, and on Pacific Street, with about 185 to 75 $1,000 CNAC funding program. That's been not a very large impact to that physical constraint. We're just moving that project. And the other projects are either shrinking, Brian?
The single operation Pacific Street is correct. The other one should have been single operations. So,
Oh, okay.
similar amount to some CMAC funds.
Okay.
You swap those 2 projects.
Yeah, if you want to make a motion to recommend approval, just add that correction to your motion, and then I'll make that change before it goes to our board next week.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve with swapping signal operations north and south.
Understood. Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. I think that's me. Thank you.
Just wanted.
The last section of the TTAC, Jim Warren, will be presenting the federal functional application. Excellent. So you saw this presentation. I wasn't able to talk to all those at TTAC last month, but this is just a follow on. This is looking for these federal classification changes.
important here that we're setting design standards for the NDOT design team for that interchange. So this is something that they need for the design and follow on interchange justification for. This is a quick turnaround. So we have previously, we tried to quantify this in the regional functional classification update, but we have chosen not to do that. And I guess we'll go to the next slide. So there's a lot of background material that comes into in this material. We're following the guidelines from the federal highway industry. A little bit more in the next map. The Western Survey Transportation Enhancement Plan informed a lot of this plan. So for those unpaved roads that we're talking about, that group project list and then the individual projects that are going into the TIP, those are pretty important in making sure that those individual segments do get approved by our board of directors, by all the local jurisdictions. We'll have solutions. Thanks. Okay, so we talked about this red circle, 192nd Street, that there's an existing bridge providing across ID and Cape Park Road, east to west, 180th Street, starting at Black Harrison Street, and then Meridian down to 192nd Street to Flatview Road. And really that network supports that interchange, allowing us to draw congestion traffic away from 70 interchange.
Can we talk a little bit about what we're talking about, that it's a new I-80 interchange, like for the RPAC, give a little bit of context.
So a good number of years ago, NDOT map and our community members conducted a planning study called the Metropolitan Transportation. Thank you. So this identified a lot of improvements on the existing system. And one of the things that it recommended was that we put a new interchange between Highway 370 and the interchange of Highway 31. So if you travel through there, Highway 370 in particular, it doesn't operate very well because it sees more traffic, turning traffic into Omaha for work and trying to come back home in the evening. So this location was recommended. We conducted a plan and environment study a number of years ago that narrowed. You may have seen that announcement months ago. This Metropolitan Planning Organization has functions of, of course, managing the projects that are associated, and secondly, making recommendations for classification changes. So that's here. This is quick, I guess, because just the time frame that any of you have. So, yeah, I think we should. We'll go to the next slide. And this is really busy. I apologize. Each jurisdiction is getting something different, but the challenge of function classification is you break it at certain points. You break it at jurisdiction boundaries, whether it's urban or urban area boundary adjusted in from the 2022 census, and then whether or not the roadway is paved or not. And so all of this will go to the board of directors of a couple listings of basically 19 different segment changes. 180th Street through Meridian down to 92nd Street is my material. Cape Park Road, Highway 31 to Highway 50 is major. I'm happy to take any questions if there are particular details of this. This would be the recommendation for TTAC.
Voting to approve.
Thank you, Sean. That's helpful. Is there a motion? Is there a motion to approve? Motion? Second.
Motion?
All,
Jerry?
yeah. Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Court, that takes care of our.
So, that might depend on Keith, you want to do the description?
Sure, yeah. So we'll move into to a round robin of updates, the first being the Omaha. So the content update with you all being here today.
Dear Bob, almost.
You all. We're doing business plan. And this is gonna be for the next 10 to 20 year future. Of Omaha. I'll break it down for you in around 5 minutes. Stay tuned. So this is We Make Omaha, it's how we're rating our comprehensive planning process. It's gonna be covering a swath of issues. This is kind of all the central elements of the We Make Omaha comprehensive plan. So we're gonna be touching everything from land use, mobility. Public health is gonna be woven throughout, we'll also be touching house, parks, etc. So this is a lot that we're cramming into the plan, but this is basically everything that is functioning within a city. This is a quick presentation overview. We can jump on to the next slide. So the currently operating under a plan that started, it was completed in 1997. At that time, we were really dealing with issues post World War II development. A lot of cul-de-sac, a lot of subdivisions not connecting with each other, a lot of strip development. We think about North 72nd Street. These were kind of the issues that we were dealing with at the time. Move 2 slides forward. We'll see that out of that slide, we came up with a couple big moves. From a planning standpoint, we made every mile we have 3 connections across. This is trying to get the subdivisions to be disconnected, trying to bring some more connectivity. Also move to our mixed use centers with major arterial connect out in West Omaha. There you have a center of mixed use activity. They're trying to move away from that strip development to more concentrated mixed use development. Finally, we did some things to limit cul-de-sac development. Those are 3 kind of major moves that came from a mobility standpoint. So why plan now? Didn't solve every single issue in 1997, and so there are new ones that developed. There's a couple reasons. First, we have to update it for city ordinance, but also for state statute. This is required by law so that we can have zoning be enforceable. That is kind of the legalistic standpoint of why we're updating the plan. It also provides the ability to create a new vision for the community. How the community has changed the last 27 years. This allows us to update how we can lead moving forward for the next 20 years. Other big present issue, many of you are probably aware of, that the city of Omaha is running the land. We cannot go north or south across Douglas County boundaries. We can't go east into Iowa. And the squiggly line along the west is the Elkhorn Ridge line, where it would be very expensive to jump into the floodplain. Hard and very unsafe to develop in the floodplain, and also very expensive from a utility standpoint. So this kind of creates a constraint that the city of Omaha, if we were to continue to develop at the same pace, we'd run out of like 30 years. We actually made a decision about how do we want to grow in the future. We also have some other challenges, unfortunately. We have challenges such as bravery. We are losing young talent to other cities. How do we retain, how do we attract young talent from an economic development standpoint? We had a great discussion on this as part of the We Make Omaha earlier this Tuesday night. So we had a wonderful discussion at Craig around this topic. We also are facing issues such as post-COVID. Go to the next slide. COVID has changed how we use land. We're seeing the building. How many of you are familiar with the dual apartments down? There's an example of an incredible change of land use. There's 2 massive office buildings that are no longer being used as offices, and instead they're being used as housing. The impacts to the things that remote work is going to affect land use. Online shopping is affected land use. How is this going to play out in the future? We also have climate change. This shows that climate change migration potential. As far as climate change is concerned, Omaha is pretty well situated to be buffered from the worst. Buffered from the worst temperature increases, buffered from increases due to sea rise. So therefore, there's a part that people will be moving out of places such as Arizona, Utah, moving away from the coast and places such as Florida. Where are they gonna move to? Omaha is a potential place that they might move to. How do we think about the ability to use that? We move on to the next slide. We unfortunately also will face climate change. We already have the things such as flooding, heat waves, and droughts. We will continue to face higher severity of each of those issues. That is something we need to prepare for as a city, as a community, and as a wider region. This affects sort of our population. From UNO and NAPA, from Woods and Poles, we've seen that there's been a sort of decrease in potential population growth. This, the blue line is the Woods and Pole model. The consultant that we're working on, Cascadia Partners, with for the scenario portion, has played around some of those numbers. Specifically, we're thinking about climate migration. Climate migration starts to kick in stronger for the next 20 years. With that bump up our population projection numbers. So that is the numbers shown in the orange on the right side. So public engagement, how are we going to do this? We aren't doing this alone. This project started in 2023, really started picking up in 2024. We'll wrap up late 2026, early 2027. We're doing this in partnership. We have wonderful nonprofit partners, Omaha by Design, Spark CDI, the Latino Economic Development Corporation, and also Elevate Omaha, reaching out to the youth of the city of Omaha. We have two main lanes of engagement. One is our product public engagement. The other one is our technical committee for core partners. Some of you are still on our technical committees, doing a little bit more focus with the goals, with scenario planning, a bit more focus, higher level. So from a public engagement standpoint, phase one was the initial listening to the community. Here's the list of everything that we did. Opening survey with over 3,000 responses, pop-up events, we did 9 with 755 people inputting, and a visions of value workshop with over 200 participants. Move to the next slide. What we heard a lot. A lot about public transportation, and that needed improvements, mobility, more housing. We really talked about also vibrant, dense mixed use. People really shared a lot of what they love, a lot of potential that they see grow. And all of that was rolled into guiding principles. There's 9 guiding principles that basically set out how we make Omaha comprehensive in the future. They're everything from beauty and vibrancy to accessibility and affordability. They touch on many different topics, but all of that is based on words and feedback from the community from phase one. Now we moved into phase two. We had district dialogue, one in each 7 council districts, over 500 participation. This really allowed people to take those guiding principles, place where they wanted to see the changes on maps. If you were talking about accessibility, where did you want to see it? They were here to show us. Here's again a list of things that we heard in the district that very similar to the first phase, very similar across the different corridors of Omaha. So what's next? A lot is next. One is working through network analyst groups, really drilling down to smaller groups here. You can see the list that we've already talked to, such as young professionals, emerging developers, but we will be talking to over the next 6 months, everyone from refugees to our Native American population, older adults, disability communities, the youth. We will also be continuing to do pop-up events. So if you have an event in the city that you want us to be at, please reach out to us. We love to come, love to interact, spread the word about who we make Omaha. Plus, we are incredibly colorful and vibrant wherever we show up. So we have a national speaker series. We had just this Tuesday talking about housing place by brain drain. We will have one about housing in the spring. We are working on a couple other ones. Really bring a discussion around these ideas to the city of Omaha. We are doing 2 other community events. We're doing a street mural on 13th and William near the Bohemia. This is piloting a new street art memo that Public Works helped put together. We'll also be doing a parklet. So we're taking a shipping container and we're showing how parking spaces can be used in different ways. So that will be coming up in spring. Some of these ideas have been generated by public input. We're already putting it into action. Finally, we're working through scenario planning. This plan is taking a bit different approach than our last plan. Last plan was more literally. Traditionally, planning has been literally action. Say, here where we are, here's where we're going. We're looking at it as a scenario. What are different ways that we can grow? We choose to grow further. How does that impact? If we choose to focus growth in the center of Omaha, how does that impact? How does it affect our ability to provide transportation? How does that impact? We're going to be building scenarios with the help of our technical committee and our consultant Cascadia partners. Then we're going to be taking these to the public and asking them, how do we make these trade-offs in the community? How do we make trade-offs, about density and about preserving our ecosystem? How do we provide affordable housing to also provide transportation? And scenario planning will be helping us do that. Will really help us, again, raise awareness, minimize our blind spots, focus that discussion with different policies and their impacts on the village work. So thank you all. Please, if you have not connected with us, we have a wonderful website called leavingomaha.org. We're also on all these social medias. Do please reach out, attend our events, ask questions. We really appreciate all of you who attended our events so far and have been really impactful on various committees. But if you haven't been able to connect so far, please do connect with us. I do not know if we have time for questions, but if you do have questions, either now or at the end, talk to myself or Darren Miller.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. The value and importance of this joint assembly is critical, because we talk about some of the procedural, technical things that TTAC, does and guide us through. It's important to marry that with RPAC's work and the context that comes with talking about regional planning, and hopefully later Grant can talk about the SAID survey, what that's meant to do, we shared, and just the way why it matters to all of us, and why it makes our region stronger. So when you have ordinances or mandates and that come to us, this group and the MAPA board and MAPA staff and our partners help operationalize stuff. So it's not a manual that is on the shelf. And we did the thing. We took the mandate from the state or federal government or from city ordinance, and we created a plan about how do we activate this in the context we need to effectively do that. And really happens out here. So thank you, Mark, and thanks, Derek, for your team's leadership on that. And thank you to the TTAC team and to the MAPA team for just making it plain wise for us to come together. Context, engagement, and stewardship in this moment. So as Lindsay gets ready to come up, the next topic we'll talk about motorized vehicles on the rail. And that's the reason I came today.
Hey, all right, no problem. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Lindsay Button. I'm a transportation planner with MAPA. As you mentioned, I'm here to talk to you today about some regional coordination on bike and ped initiatives throughout the region. Particular focus on e-motos. So to start off here, we're going to kind of lay the ground rules a little bit. What is an e-moto? So an e-moto looks like an electric bicycle, but it's not. So electric bicycles were defined in Nebraska statute in 2023. I'm not going to go through all of that stuff. It's fine print. If those of you can read it, great. If not, let me know. We can chat about it. But mostly for an e-bike, they're fully operative with pedals that work to move the bicycle, and then they're assisted by an electric motor. The top speeds on an e-bike are capped out at about 28 to 30 miles an hour. Contrasted with these e-motors, which we're seeing a lot more of in the region. So an e-motor is a lot closer to a motorcycle, but the problem is that they're being marketed to youth as bikes. So when that happens, then these kids are taking the bikes on the trails and they're taking them on a whole bunch of other places where it's not necessarily safe for them to be for a number of different reasons. And the fact of the matter is that safety regulations have not yet caught up with this marketing and availability of these new modes of micro. Next slide, please. So this is a shared challenge. So I want to pose to the group and remind everyone that our networks are a regional connected asset that we have. If I am biking down a trail through the city of Omaha, going down to grab a beer at Pint 9, I'm going to be going through La Vista, I'm going to be going through a bunch of other jurisdictions. I, as a rider, I don't know when I cross from Omaha to La Vista or Papillion. I don't know if there's going to be different rules in one jurisdiction to another. So this is the shared challenge that we think that we definitely need to be taking a regional approach to. So our trails connect not just people from within jurisdictions, but across jurisdictions. And there are considerations to be made for a local response to this issue compared to a larger regional coordinated regional response. Do the next one, please. So as I mentioned, regional coordination is paramount. It's a lot easier to educate the public and enforce when we have a single, consistent, joint message. It's a lot easier for people to understand. It's a lot easier for our enforcement partners to stay on top of. There's a lot of benefits to taking that angle. It also helps us prevent or at least guide state legislation. So if this becomes a huge issue, the state is going to want to intervene to get something done. And it's in our best interest to get ahead of that. So if we have a coordinated joint front as a metro region that says we've talked about it, we have come together and had these conversations, and this is what we as a region want to do, then that A, prevents the state from feeling a need to be proactively involved, and B, it actually can help us to guide that state legislation in a direction that is beneficial for the region. One of the big concerns, we've been working a lot with Bike Walk Nebraska, is kind of maintaining this difference in standard and definitions between those e-bikes. E-bikes are very beneficial to a lot of people with disability issues. It can help people get out on the trails that might otherwise not be. But when they get confused for these motorcycles, or if they get lumped in with these motorcycles and changing legislation in that direction, that could be problematic for a lot of different reasons. So we want to make sure that we're protecting those definitions. And that just makes it better for everyone who uses the system. So our goal at MAPA is to kind of come together. We have a couple different avenues to have these conversations. We want to look at ultimately developing some kind of regional ordinance template that every jurisdiction can adopt or use in their best interest, or just general list of best practices. Maybe there are wayfinding opportunities, things like that. And then over the next year, we're looking to kind of monitor what's going on in other neighboring sister cities with similar issues to see how they're responding to this and what is and is not effective, so that we can learn from that in order to apply that to our region. So over the next year, we're going to be having a lot of these conversations. We can go to the next slide. Yeah, you're already. So over the next year, we're going to be having a lot of these conversations and trying to kind of come to a consensus and figure out how we want as a region to handle this issue. So MAPA has a lot of great committees, like we have two of you guys here today, so you're probably more well aware of that. We have a subcommittee under our TTAC group that is called TAPC. So what TAPC stands for is our Transportation Alternatives Program. So that is a sub, it's probably too much detail, but there's a sub funding categorization under some of our regional allocation funding that goes towards transportation alternatives, which is mostly trails and things like that. And this committee historically has been mostly responsible for project selection amongst the projects submitted for that funding stream. And honestly, that's been the biggest thing that they've done. However, this group consists of a lot of biking and walking advocates. We have an NRD in there, we have jurisdictions in there. So it's a great group, we think, to kind of use to start having these conversations. So we're going to expand the responsibility of TAPC, so Transportation Alternatives Program Committee, to focus a little bit more on these kinds of regional coordination efforts with regards to active mobility. So this e-moto e-bike thing is probably going to be one of our biggest challenges and one of our biggest talking points moving forward over the next year. We're also looking at getting regional coordination on things like bicycle counts, trail conditions data, other database coordination pieces that we can use as a region to kind of benefit everyone. So that's kind of what we're looking at right now. We've got the policy piece, we've got the data piece. The next meeting for our TTAC group is going to be very early in January, so fresh off the breaks. At January 6th at 11 o'clock, it's going to be virtual. If anyone in this room either wants to participate or knows of people that should be included in these discussions, please reach out to me and I'll make sure they get an invitation to that call. We want to make sure that we have everyone in the room so we can be hearing from all of the different perspectives to make sure that we're getting some kind of solution that works for everybody. So Julie's here for Bike Walk Nebraska. If anybody has state legislative specific questions. State legislature is starting up in like less than a month, so it's not really something we're looking at for this session, but it could be something that we want to push for in 27 if we get our feet under us. Yes, Tim.
Let's see, this is two comments, super important stuff. And then the second comment is, I know that hospitals who say like trauma board are very concerned with the problem.
Yeah.
Maybe see it in the health system, and I know that people have confusion on their side between the two, and that they budgeted e-bikes. So then my question is, are we bringing them to the table?
We absolutely should. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that that would be very helpful as well. Julie, I don't know if you worked with trauma boards or the hospitals at all on these kinds of initiatives before, or?
I used to sit on a committee at NDOT that was revamping the crash reports that pulled in the first responders and the folks that were filling those out that then got inputted at the hospital level, but I do think.
Talk to Dr. Sinclair at Oregon Berkeley and lead the trauma board.
Yeah.
It'd be really.
Could you send me their contact information and I'll make sure to reach out? That would be- Oh, Jim's got it.
Yeah, in process. We're also, we're gonna take a bit of time, but we'll do a focus map. Mid-spring, to get those groups engaged. I think it is important that a young kid on one of these e-motos is gonna be classified. So the ability for our crash records to pull out this information is gonna be challenging, just because of how involved. So it is a really important topic.
It can be really challenging too, because a lot of these bikes, they will put pedals on them to make them look like bicycles, but the pedals are either not functional or the bike motor itself is too high for it to be classified properly as an e-bike, and then that gets challenging when those crashes are reported as to what that vehicle is going to be classified as by, let's say, someone who doesn't necessarily know the intricacies of the differences between those ones.
Also, that is great you're doing this. We just recently city council item where we putting in our first recycle station, and we had residents stand up questioning allowing. We've kind of drafted a policy that we're going to open up, regional. Definitely, well, recently becoming important, and even the public knows this is.
Yeah, and I think our biggest push right now is we would really like for you to hold off on any kind of local ordinance until we're able to have these regional conversations so that we can make it applicable to the metro as a whole, all in one push collectively at the same time. We think that's probably going to have the biggest, best impact with regards to this issue. In the meantime, Pavilion's done a great job. They did a social media push defining the different types of e-bikes, motorized vehicles, ATVs, golf courts, and various existing ordinances as to where they are and are not allowed on roadways versus trails versus licensing requirements and that kind of stuff. So there is an opportunity for an education campaign before we get necessarily a concrete ordinance put out to kind of help guide the public through expectations and safety. I always kind of like to remind people that an e-bike, if you get up to class 3 where they can get up to 28 and 30 miles an hour, that's going to be the same speed as someone with a speed-based road bike in Lycra going on flat. So it's not necessarily because of the motor. There is a lot of behavioral aspects that are associated with this as well.
I'll just add, Bike Walk Nebraska put out a blog a couple of weeks ago about this issue, so there's a lot of what we're going to be talking about here, so I encourage you to check that out. But we're following right now on an ordinance just passed by the city of Hastings that outlawed all e-bikes on streets with speed limits over 25 miles an hour. which essentially restricts them to residential streets. But it, at the same time, regular standard, whatever we're calling them, regular bikes are still allowed on any street, but it's just e-bikes that aren't allowed. So now the law enforcement is gonna have to figure out, when they see a bike on Main Street, is that an e-bike or not an e-bike? And how do they enforce it? They can't. It's just gonna make drivers who are already hostile to bicyclists more hostile, because they're gonna see a regular bike on the street and say, wait, you're not supposed to be here, where you're supposed to be over there. It's a disaster. We've really gotta, I just want to reinforce what Lindsay said about if your community is looking at passing an ordinance or looking at that right now, please just hold off, because we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and we really need to avoid doing that. So let's take this coordinated approach and figure out what's gonna work.
And it's a lot.
It's sensible. I think that is kind of what we're trying to achieve here. Applying sensible practices throughout the region. And if anyone needs help, Lindsay and our team at MAPA, Julie is very connected with what we're doing. Come to us, let's have a chat. If you need us to go over to your mayor's office or your council officials, happy to do that as well and have those conversations. So definitely join us January 6th, 11 a.m. And if you have any questions,
We're also starting to see ADA lawsuits against cities that are banning e-bikes. So that's also, that legal trend is starting to show up. So if this has a lot of tendrils. Thanks for me.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thanks, Lindsay. That was, awesome. Before you come up, Grant, sure, some, talk about unintended consequences of, well-meaning, opportunities to encourage different modes of transportation, but that have consequences. So that's very smart. Thank you, Julie, for that. Thanks, Tim, for that question on Great Vision Zero of you to ask that question. And Carlos, thank you for lending your expertise, certainly. So, I love that. Hold a call to hold off on ordinances until we have kind of a regional understanding and some more data, maybe some evidence from other communities before we, move legislation forward. So thank y'all for that. So Grant is going to come up next and talk about the regional market. And, anything else that is, may not make this right on time. So go on, Grant.
Thank you, Keith. Hi, I'm Grant Anderson. Some of you might not know me. I'm having this.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
No. It has to be.
I'm Grant Anderson. I'm MAPA's Community and Economic Development Manager. So yes, I'm going to talk about a planning initiative that we started earlier this year. It's called analysis. We contracted with consultants called Community Scale early this year to produce a market value analysis for MAPA's region. Market value analysis is a planning tool that has sprung up more and more across the nation. Cities like Kansas City, for instance, have a market value analysis of their own. So just recent circumstances, conversations with community partners, what we decided now was excellent time to commission such a planning effort for this region. And I will say that we were able to make this possible through grant from First Investments. So thank you to them for helping us get this across the finish line. So for any of you that aren't really familiar with what a market value analysis is, it's really, the purpose is to support data-driven. You're an officer. The purpose is to support data-driven planning, local investment, policymaking, issues related to affordable housing and accessibility. But it's really a tool in terms to measure relative housing market demand, in real time and want to change over time and help guide local decision making, housing policy and placement. So if you go to the next slide, please. What does the market value analysis look like? How does it work? And I think Laura, if you click on the heading, that should take you a link, that should take you to a link of story map. All right. So there were two main deliverables that community scale provided. One being this ArcGIS story map, and then a shape file. So if you can scroll down a little bit, you can see functionally how this works. They have here a map that, again, is for our 6 county region in a 7x10 tract. And there are various data inputs that inform the color scale which you see here. So it's being scored. Thank you. If you look at the legend, there are two things really being the current condition, current market condition, and the changeover sign. So in this case, we're looking at 2020 to present. And if you can go to the next slide, please, Laura. Okay, yeah. So there are 9 categories here with the color scale purple, blue, green, as you can see. And the data input variables will determine the primary color and the shade. I apologize, I'm not a data person by training or education, so some of the description here leave a little be desired. But if you go to the next slide, these are the variables that map a community scale and stakeholder and focus groups worked with came up and determined that these would inform what the map output would be. So for instance, population change, vacant units, typical home prices, job access, cost burden, now rate. So these are the data inputs that inform where the geography or census tract. In developing this tool, we determined that the likely audience will consist of 4 groups: local planners, affordable housing developers, foundation, philanthropic community, and elected officials, policymakers. And depending on who you are, and that's not entirely exhaustive, depending on which group you represent, you can utilize this tool and review it in a way to inform things that are just you, things that are in your sphere of influence. So for instance, if you're a planner, you might want to look at how transit routes and levels of service and how those promote access to jobs. I'm not going to go into great detail on these, but if you go to the next one, if you're an affordable housing developer, where are sites for affordable housing redevelopment that have a great impact, reduce impact on neighborhood population. And then if you are from the philanthropic community, you can identify neighborhoods that are in need of some kind of mission-driven intervention to get particular areas or neighborhoods more competitive relative to the greater region. And then finally, if you're a policymaker, how does my district compare to the rest of the city, to the rest of the region? And what are the unique challenges and opportunities that your area, your neighborhood faces? So, community scale has finalized the sorting map they've given us the raw data. And we will have a shape file, but we are not quite ready yet to distribute this externally. I suspect that by the end of this month or very early 2026, we will be able to have a broader mailing distribution of this. The shape file will be available to communities, members, and partners. You can utilize that into your own planning and mapping and GIS tools. We're also working to develop kind of a user desk reference, if you will. View how this works and what it's intended for. But again, like depending on what you're looking to use it for, we can provide an adequate and simple reference document material that we'll look at and navigate as they utilize the shape files. So I will try to answer any questions in your time, and whoever's next.
Awesome. Thank you. Any questions? Okay, seeing that, are there any comments from the public, anyone who's not in the committee or online? Today, any submitted in advance, Laura? No, seeing none, okay. Let's move on to map updates. We're still running on time, so at the end, we'll have time for a tour of this fantastic venue, but let's run through those map updates. Who's doing it first?
I'll do it. Real quick. We just want to get everybody an update on, so that was awarded $2 million grant, US DOT to do basically improvements to our regional prioritization process, as well as improve coordination with the state DOTs, just generally on transportation project prioritization. That is what we're talking about trips. Transformative regional investment prioritization system will be once we're finished with grants. We have kind of a rough timeline of what we're going to be doing with the TRIPS project. Over the next roughly year, we'll be having meetings with local communities. So we're going to be reaching out to you to talk about kind of how we prioritize things locally, and then how does that inform regional process. So that's kind of like the next step, the next big thing we're going to be doing. That'll also include conversations with the state DOTs, basically the same thing, and that how the state DOTs make decisions within the region, and how does MAP plug in on that and make sure that we're kind of speaking the same language. A lot of what we want to do is make sure that if we're using data sets, we're kind of using the same data sets, so we can have these conversations, compare notes, and just generally improve how we prioritize things. And if we can come up with a system that helps you do prioritization locally, and then that information can kind of come up to the regional level. We got a lot of ideas, and we want to talk. And ultimately, though, this is about a 3 to 4 year process, and will inform the next iteration of the metropolitan transportation plan, which is due in 2030. So we want to kind of wrap all this stuff up, have software to 2020. That's it for that. I don't know any questions about that. All right, thank you. What's the next one?
All right, great Anderson again. Okay, so SET is everyone's favorite acronym. That is Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. If you go to the next slide, please. I've talked about this, and I believe more than this last year or so. But SET is a 5-year economic analysis for our region. So we have a partnership with the Economic Development Administration. They designate us as a district, which basically just means that MAPA kind of acts as it's on the ground, ears to the ground, if you will, and helps connect local and regionally significant projects that might be eligible for grant funding, communicating those projects, and being kind of a facilitator between potential grantees and EDA. So in order to maintain that designation and to maintain that federal partnership, we produce the said document, again, 5-year plan, and it's really 2 or 3 parts. One, it's just an assessment of current economic development conditions for the region, looks at economic indicators, and then there is a focus group, public engagement, kind of solicitation element to it as well. This is a public document, but the public isn't necessarily the intended audience, if you will. So we're really communicating more directly with economic development organizations, community-based organizations, to get feedback on economic development conditions, factors of change, and then those really go to inform the last part, which is the implementation section. So the comprehensive, the Omaha comprehensive plan presentation from earlier, you're going to see really kind of the same themes. So, some strengths that we're talking about, kind of visual summary or snapshot, low cost of living, motivated workforce that has a higher participation rate. We have strong quality of life. There's steady population growth. It's not robust growth, but it is steady. And we have business environment, weaknesses, aging infrastructure, housing, excuse me. We have a finite amount of available land, limited incentive and resources, and that's really from the context of what's available being provided currently by the states. The low wages and if we're looking at opportunities, adaptive reuse of buildings and facilities, this is more something that came out of our conversation with rural partners. We're talking about communities that have school facilities, for instance, that may have shuttered due to school district consolidation. Other opportunities, transit-oriented development, legacy anchor institutions like Offutt, UNMC, and threats. We've heard all these before. The presentation earlier really touched on these brain drain, but more deeper than that, just competition with regions that are peer regions or regions that we kind of aspire to be. There's conflict between balancing the current quality of life and the desire to grow. Increased polarization, growing civil discourse, that is the theme. Not surprising that we heard throughout this process, and more frequent empowerment. So I know we're kind of getting pressed for time, and I won't go on too much longer. I would say, one threat, one issue is for just the job test. You go to the slide. So, job growth, employment growth is slow. Only 12,000 new employees hired from 2019 to 2024. And, the data shows that there's a shortage deficit of over 60,000 employees. So really what that means, more jobs available / qualified workers. And average annual wages, something else that is kind of interesting, and could be likely problematic is, even though annual wages have increased from 2019 to 2023, wages in this region are still about 85% of the national average, at least in 2023. And we often tout low cost of living. That is still very much the case, but it's not really as competitive as it was, say, 5 years ago. And when I say competitive, we're really comparing ourselves to peer metros like Des Moines and maybe more aspirational metros like Kansas City or the city. So next slide. There are 7 broad goals, and I'm not going to go through these one by one. But one thing I'd like to point out is, two things. One, EDA is an excellent funding partner, but eligibility is not always very easy. Now, one way to circumvent their more rigid eligibility requirements is whenever there is a presidential disaster declaration, that affords jurisdictions that are in those disaster areas to access funds which they otherwise might not be able to apply. So this region, every county in this region has been included in at least 2 presidential disaster declarations in the last 2 or 3 years. So currently, right now, there is an economic development administration funding opportunity for disasters that occurred in FY, or not FY, but calendar year 2023 and 2024. If your communities or if you have public-private partnerships with projects that fit broadly within the goals of this current sets, please contact us and we can see if your project is eligible, might be beneficial, whether it's EDA or something. But specifically EDA, so if you think that your jurisdiction or a business partner in your community has a project that aligns with 7 goals, please contact us. And then if you just want to bounce to the very last slide here. Oh, sorry. So here's where things stand. We're currently in the 30-day public comment period. That ends December 10th, which I believe is Friday. So, right, next Wednesday. From there, we will take the sets to our board of directors, request approval, and then if approved, adopted, we will submit this to the EA. We would like to move from this being kind of a 5-year number to something that we just incrementally update annually. And I kind of consider this plan as just something that we refine over time, and it's just playing in the air. So again, public comment period, and I think there was a QR code in the first slide. Additional feedback is certainly welcome, and I'll try to answer any questions, and I probably want to.
I might just take it.
Currently has a application open for transportation funding. It is primarily for amendments to existing projects, although if you are interested in a Heritage 2050 mini, you can apply for new projects through that. But otherwise, transportation construction dollars. Only, we're not asking for new projects. An existing award and you have a scope change or additional funding, that's you have an opportunity to apply. Now, January 17th, do you have any questions about that? And this is for the also all the projects over in the RPA on that. Rachel.
All right, so we've also got all the projects that have been on our case that I mentioned. This round that primarily includes the TAP programs, the transportation alternatives that Lindsay was talking about earlier. We also have a call for amendments open for the SPBG program, which is the Surface Transportation Block. Only be accepting amendments that are currently programmed in FY 28 and beyond. A little bit of information. There is a lot more information, including criteria, scoring. All of that information is available on the website, as well as any application materials. So I would encourage you all, if you're interested in that, take a look at that. And if you have any questions, reach out to me.
I've got a fun one. So my team gets to do the Health and Learning site visits. We've got a site visit coming up in the spring, April or May. We're going to go to Detroit. So this is the first time we've opened up like letters of interest or applications for that. So we'd love it if you're interested in coming along. We take about 25 people from the area. We try to get a really good presentation to go and learn from what they're doing in Detroit and kind of see what different projects they've got going on and what type of things we can learn from them. So please, if you're interested, there's been some people in the room, definitely raise your hand if anybody can come bug you questions if you've already before, thank you. So they're a lot of fun, right? Yes. We will keep you busy, but it'll be a really great time, a good networking, some good projects will come out of it at the end, but please let us know if you're interested and, fill out that application.
Or true or false, Apple pays for everything.
No. There's about a $2,000-$2,500 fee that just covers, your direct costs, so you don't add anything to that, we just charge you exactly what you are. Next week, we also have our regional housing symposium in coordination with our council of officials quarterly meeting. So we'll be hearing from Ally Police, who is a housing policy consultant, pretty well nationally known. She has been working with investments again. So they're sponsoring, bringing her to do the keynote for our council officials meeting. But we're also then after that meeting, holding a regional housing symposium where we'll be hearing from Congressman Mike Flood, who's housing and committee, sorry, sure, you might know. But we'll be doing that. There'll also be a mayor's panel to talk about innovative housing solutions that are happening throughout the region. So please, if you haven't registered, check out that QR code and join us next Wednesday.
Most of you probably don't know, MAPA has a nonprofit subsidiary, it's called the MAPA Foundation. It's existed for about 20 years, and it was really established to allow MAPA to receive charitable donations. And we, over time, have kind of amassed a relatively modest fund of monies, really due to projects that we administer for our member communities, community development block grant, there's program income generated from those projects. And there are other sources as well, but we've never really had a real strategic vision or idea of how to leverage this foundation and, the funds that are currently capitalized and continuing to grow. So all that being said, we've created an RFP, trying to get some professional consultation on how we can better leverage this and support some of the work that is happening outside of RPAC and community members. So there's more to come on that. We issued, the RFP will be issued early this year. Happy to talk to anyone after the meeting if you specifics on what the foundation does. Just be on the lookout for that.
And we do have a web page that lists all the current RFPs and RFQs and sign up to get on the mailing list.
The Nebraska Department of Transportation will be holding a worker study, 75 from Highway 370 up to the I-80 and I-30 interchange. You have a public input survey. We just encourage everybody that it is impacted by this quarter. Please take some time and provide an input. It's a really good survey. There are a lot of good questions, and I think you might find something that you'd like to input. I'm sure the NDOT staff appreciate your time. Thank you. There's not much time left, so open it up on your phone and do it today, so you don't.
It's just kind of, it's in there. Guess we want to.
I think we have, if there's no other business, we have a few minutes for,
Hi, everyone. I just want to personally invite everyone to the annual Heartland 2050 Holiday Mixer happening next Tuesday, 3 to 4:30 at Champagne Lane, No Market / Riverfront. We'll have snacks, we'll have bowling, we'll have all of our implementation committee chairs there so you can talk to them and network and have some good time fun. Please come.
most engaged and fun. Any other council, I know Vicky plays very usually by anyone to all. Be okay. Or find any other. Or vote. If there are none, then, close out, and please hang back and take it to court, having visited this. Max, I appreciate, working with you all, or who. Big calls and. Also, congratulations. City Fire on that. Grants. Change this. Thanks, Todd, for your leadership with TTAC and Chris, for your leadership of RPAC, all the other committee chairs. Brandon and I will be, signing in reports. Well. Anything else for the good of the order? I think Corinne is here Corinne, you're right on time. From the catalyst, explorers.
You have one thing, if you are looking for map calendars.
Yep.
You can come with me, well, I don't know, should we wait till after? Well, I don't know if anybody is.
We'll stick around. Yeah.
If you're not sticking around for the tour, talk to court to get your calendars. If you
Yes.
are, we'll be around to hand them out.
What she said.
Break it down.
Fran, I don't know if you want to say anything before the tour starts, or.
I'll just say a quick hello, everyone. I'm Fran Worthington. I'm the community manager here at Catalyst. So, thank you for coming and being in our space this morning. Grateful that you're here. We're a collaborative office space, so we have everything from co-working to larger office spaces, as well as our Forge event hall. So hope you're able to come back and see us again sometime.
So we'll just finish up and everybody can, get in line with Corinne when you're ready.
And with that, the meeting is adjourned at